So, as you can tell, the beard that I was sporting in my last couple of videos is gone. Yep, Steve Beard is no more, but one day, Steve Beard will return. But that's not what I'm here to talk about tonight. Tonight, I'm here to talk about a fantastic film that I saw over the weekend called Call Me By Your Name. Call Me By Your Name was directed by Luca Guadagnino and stars Timothee Chalamet as a 17-year-old, very precocious young man living in northern Italy with his parents. His father has an intern come in, played by Armie Hammer, and a very special relationship blossoms between them. This is one of those rare movies where I really do not know where to start with praising it. It is mind-blowingly good. I guess I'll start off with some really strong assets of the film, which are the performances. Timothée Chalamet's character of Elio is a very precocious and very intelligent young man, but at the same time, he's not very emotionally intelligent, and he knows this, actually. He has a lot of conflicting emotions, and even though he knows he has them, he doesn't really know how to deal with them. And this is portrayed beautifully in a very naturalistic performance by Timothée Chalamet. And I guess I shouldn't say that this is a surprise, because I've always thought that Armie Hammer was a good actor, but I always thought that he would end up kind of being put in the category of guys who are just really good looking on camera and don't really get to do much. But my god, he's great in his role. He's a little bit older than Elio and a little bit more mature, but also doesn't really know what to do with his feelings, and he also portrays that beautifully. The really beautiful thing about these performances is that they don't go over the top. They don't seem like people acting. They don't have the, oh my gosh, I'm in front of the camera and I'm gonna give my Oscar moment feel to them. As a lot of you may know, Timothée Chalamet got nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Leading Role for a Drama Film. He didn't win, but he got nominated, and that's a pretty rare feat for somebody his age. I believe he's 22 years old. I'm not trying to restrict the acting category and say that young people can't give good performances, but it isn't exactly often that people that young can give such a complex performance in a way that actually gets recognized in the awards circuit. I honestly think that Timothée Chalamet has a chance at getting at least an Oscar nomination. I can't say that that's guaranteed because he's young and there's some good competition this year, but I think he's honestly a front runner. And I have to say the same thing for Armie Hammer. I think that his performance was terrific, and I think he actually has a shot at getting a nomination for Best Supporting Actor. Although I do have to say another person in this film who has a pretty decent shot at Best Supporting Actor is Michael Stuhlbarg. Michael Stuhlbarg is an actor who is pretty much great in every single film he's in, but he's not quite at the point where a lot of people recognize him for his name. He's in a lot of movies, and pretty much every movie he's in, he gives a great performance, but this, my god. Michael Stuhlbarg gives a speech toward the end of the film, and I don't want to spoil anything, I don't want to give anything away, but this speech, I would say, rivals Robin Williams' soliloquy on life in Good Will Hunting. It's that good. Now, aside from the performances, there's the way the story is told. It kind of meanders back and forth, and it does that purposely. This film is a relationship developing over the course of one summer. And honestly, when you have something happening over the course of that amount of time, it doesn't really follow like a movie plot, so to speak. It honestly kind of goes back and forth in this not so well thought out, well flowed way. And I think that the director did this on purpose to make it more naturalistic, and it actually works. It's dangerous to do that sometimes because it can come off as pretentious, but here it really doesn't. It works. Another thing that I have to single out is the choice in music that they did in the film, especially in the opening credits sequence. This opening credit sequence in this movie is one of the most beautiful I've seen in a long time. Not just because of the imagery, but because of the music playing behind it. It instantly grabs you. And another thing that I have to give kudos to is how sensitive the film is. Not really in terms of just feelings or anything like that, but I didn't just see beautiful things or hear beautiful music or beautiful sounds. The movie almost kind of has like a sense of touch. It almost has a sense of taste and smell to it too, with a lot of things that happen in it. And that's something that's really hard to achieve. When I was watching it, I almost felt like I was there with these two people. There is a rumor floating around about this movie that's stopping a lot of people from watching it and is causing a lot of unneeded controversy. There's this rumor that this movie is promoting predatory behavior and that this movie is basically a glorification of pedophilia. Anybody who tells you that has not watched this movie and has no idea what the fuck they're talking about. I'm just gonna say it. Looking at you, James Woods. The movie is not about a pedophilic relationship, and it's not about predatory behavior. It is about two people who meet each other and have really strong feelings with each other and really have a strong connection. One of them is a little bit younger, and by the way, the age of consent in Italy is 14. And this kid is 17, and this other guy is 24, so they're both still pretty young. It is about them developing a relationship with each other, but it's more so about the complexity of their feelings and how each of them reacts to it. It's not a glorification of predatory behavior. This relation is not predatory in any sense of the word. And even if you throw out the idea of the age of consent at 14 in Italy, a lot of people take into account the age gap, and whether or not the age gap is a good thing or a bad thing. If you do the math, it's a 7-year age gap. And I will admit, I was actually in, I wouldn't really consider it a serious relationship, but I briefly dated somebody who was actually 7 years older than me. I honestly can kind of relate to what Elio was feeling. Compared to this other person, I felt like the much less mature one, partially because of my age, and also partially because I hadn't dated very many people or been with very many other people before that person. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I like the movie so much. All I'm trying to say here is that this relationship portrayed in this movie is not one that should be demonized. This is not a predatory relationship. It's not a pedophilic relationship. It's not a sick relationship. It's one that involves two people discovering themselves, really, and discovering things about each other. The very last shot of the film, the very last shot of the movie. I am not somebody who cries easily during movies. I get sad during movies, but I'm very rarely brought to tears. The very last shot in the movie, I was fighting to not cry. I was trying desperately not to start bawling my eyes out while watching this final shot in this movie. There's one thing that I want to say about this movie that does give it some praise that a lot of people don't really think is praiseworthy about the movie, but I think it is actually an asset to the movie. There's a movie reviewer named Chris Stuckman, and I think the guy is awesome. I love his movie reviews. I've found that he and I generally seem to have the same taste just from watching his previous reviews, and he is one of the people who actually inspired me to start making movie reviews on YouTube. This is one of the rare cases where I really strongly disagree with something that he has said. Now, he did not dislike Call Me By Your Name. He actually nearly put it in his top movies of 2017. However, he said that one problem with the movie that he had was that there seemed to not be very much conflict in the way of this relationship that these two people were developing. It seemed almost like there wasn't much of a struggle, or at least he wanted to see a little bit more of a struggle, or a little bit more of an obstacle in the way of this relationship that they had. And honestly, I thought that the fact that there weren't any human obstacles in the way, or at least there weren't any explicitly defined human obstacles in the way, was a very strong asset to the movie. That it emphasizes that the humans are not the villain here. The villain of the movie is essentially time. Because we know that this relationship is developing over one summer. We know that the guy's only going to be an intern for the summer. We know that one day he's going to go back home at the end of the summer and go about his life, most likely. people are not the villains of this film. The villain of this film is time. Time is the entity that the characters in this film are at odds with. And I thought that the fact that there weren't any human villains or obstacles in the way of this film was a very strong way of depicting that. So overall, if you guys are up for something different and you're up for a very challenging movie and a very emotionally adept movie, and if you want to see some really, really good performances by some younger actors, definitely check this film out. If you can put up with the slow pace and you can put up with the subject matter, it is definitely well worth seeing. Well guys, I hope this review helped you figure out whether or not you want to see Call Me By Your Name, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good night, everybody.